Welcome everybody to the Laying It Down podcast, where we talk about everything wrestling. Tonight, we have the host of the Wrestling Retold and Relived podcast, the one and only TikTok creator, Richie Mars. Welcome in, my friend.
Thank you for having me, JLD. You know, we've talked about doing this for quite a while, and I'm appreciative of your time and allowing me to come on here today.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to check out Richie Mars' socials, make sure you check out the description down below in the comments. This video will be available on both YouTube and Spotify, or wherever you get all of your podcast related shows. If you want to check them out, that's where you'll find them. We also have Just Laying Down merchandise that you guys are able to check out. Head over to justlayingdown.com if you want to help support the brand. We got hats, t-shirts, and wrestling and streaming merch for everybody's favorite kind of merch and all that. So Richie, I appreciate you pulling in today. I think we've known each other for a while now, from like TikTok and all that. I forgot like who followed who, but like we've kind of just like gotten to know each other and just like see each other's videos and just see the growth of both of us. So that's freaking cool, man.
Yeah, it's very cool to see. And it's actually a funny story. I don't think I told you this. So this was around like Elimination Chamber, right? And you did the watching Rhea Ripley at 5 a.m. video, and you're like just like sleeping down. My buddy, who was on a couple episodes of my podcast, actually sent that to me.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't know. Yeah, he didn't know like we followed each other. I'm like, oh yeah, I know him. He's like, oh what word? I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah, you know, it's like it's been pretty crazy, like the whole like journey, because TikTok this time last year I wasn't putting out content, and now I've grown so much, like just knowing different people, finding out different people on like the wrestling community. It's been like a crazy ride, but it's it's a good one at the same time.
And it's great to see how we all evolve from our content. Like even like there's people that follow me. I don't know if you follow the Machoverse, the guy who does like the Randy Savage impersonation, like the cosplay and all that, all the conventions. Yes. My brother-in-law actually sends me those videos all the time, and I had to tell him today, I'm like, I know who he is, like we follow each other and all that. He's like, oh shit, like that's freaking legendary and all that. And he's going to his first Comic-Con with me like later this year, so he's like, hopefully we see him. Cool. Hopefully we see him soon. So it was like, you know, it's a small world out there with the content creation, and like a few people that I know from streaming have also like they've been sent my videos not realizing the same thing, like what you said. They're like, oh snap, I know him, like and all that. So
it's such a small world, you know. It's like big but small.
There's a lot of people in our space too that we know that are like very good mutual friends. I know, like shout out to Chrissy Tina, shout out to Shayna Hill, I think her name is. Bald Bro, I didn't even realize who he was. When I went to AEW Revolution, he was there. He interviewed me for like a quick question of who do you think is going to win, not knowing who he was. And then like when we followed each other, like he knew all of you guys. I'm like, yo, what the hell? So that was really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool to just see. It's like, oh, you know this person? Oh, you know this person? And then it's like, the community just kind of grows bigger and bigger. And then you're like this one like dysfunctional, like almost like family reunion every time you either like see each other at an event or just like talk about it. It's like, it's really cool, because I did a fantasy warfare series for XLJ the OG, and he's like, oh, you're just gonna face somebody. I'm like, all right. I didn't know who it was, and it was my good friend Pro Wrestling Wizard, aka Doug.
Wizard,
and
yes.
And then we just kind of like battled between like who had the better NXT TNA versus TNA card, you know. So it was pretty cool, but it's like it's always like such a small world to be like, oh, you know this person too, and then it just kind of like gets mind blown from there.
It's the same as Twitch too. Like even before I started making wrestling content, like it's a small world with all the Twitch streamers you know from recommended. Like I don't know if have you ever streamed on Twitch before, or like knew of any Twitch streamers?
No,
or
yeah.
It's the same exact thing. Yeah. Small world, people know each other, people like check out each other's content, and just a merry-go-round of everybody knows each other.
Right. Yeah. It's I'm thankful for it. You know, it makes everything like content creation worthwhile.
It also makes me feel like I'm not alone in the wrestling world. Like, you know, back in the day, like we all felt like, oh, like we're the only ones that like wrestling, or like, I don't know when you started watching wrestling. I will get to that shortly.
Right.
Like back in the day, it was like a stigma watching wrestling. Like, oh, like you're a nerd or a weirdo. But now it's like grown into this like huge empire of like everybody wants to get into it, pop culture, everybody. It's cool now.
You find that with a lot of stuff, you know, like the whole Comic-Cons, those were always like, you know, like looked down upon, you know, oh, those are for nerds, dorks, this, that, the other thing. But now especially with the whole Marvel cinematic universe that got popular over time, because comic books were not a cool thing. Then they became the cool thing due to mainstream. And now we're kind of like in this like pseudo second wave of mainstream popularity for wrestling. And it's really cool to see, because when I first got into wrestling, it was like knee deep in the Ruthless Aggression era, which is probably popularity wise, especially in the mainstream, was not it. You know, it was looked down upon tremendously.
Everybody talks shit about it.
It's a giant 180. And before, it's like, you could definitely see, because when I was going through middle school and high school, it's like, oh, wrestling's like, you know, it's fake, it's this, that, the other thing. And then when I go to high school, it's like, okay, they're kind of leaving me alone with all the thing. And then I went to college, I'm like, okay, they left me alone. And now going into the gym, let's say, and then I'll have like wrestling merch on. It's like people like pointing out, giving me like the thumbs up. I went to a supermarket the other day and somebody had like a CM Punk shirt on, and I'm just like, oh, we're back, baby.
I actually worked out legs today in a CM Punk shirt, the new one from WWE. I also have the AEW one, but the CM Punk black one with the blue has been my go-to for sometimes workouts.
That was the one. That was the one too.
It's popular. CM, even though he's not wrestling right now, he's still selling merch. He's still the guy, and we can't wait for him to come back.
As long as you're over, you know, that's it. You know, I think Steve Austin has had the Austin 316 shirt consistently in the top 10 shirts being sold on Shop for like years now, which is crazy, because he hasn't been like a legit full-time active performer, whether it's like in wrestling or as GM, in like 20 years. So that just shows, once you're over that hump, you are good. You are set.
And it goes to show the Attitude Era, how much of an impact it had to WWE today. Like all those people, Mankind, Rock, Stone Cold, no matter what, their legacy lives on forever. And even people like Roman Reigns now and Cody Rhodes, their legacy is going to be down the line forever too. I see 10 years from now, same thing. Roman Reigns merch, Cody Rhodes merch. Even people like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be down the line, like people that like the new generation will look up to.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. I can't wait for it.
So we're going to get started with the introductions here. So what I usually like to do as the first question here in the podcast is let the chat know who you are, where people can find you, give us a little bit of background about who you are as a person and as a content creator, and just any fun facts that the people watching should know about you.
Yeah, of course. My name is Richie Mars. I host the Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And the concept is it's hosted by me, but my guest, I have a revolving second chair, and they choose the topic. It can be anything. I did an episode on John Cena's Peacemaker with my friends of Shoot the Flick. They're a movie podcast. I just had Light Skin Gaijin Denard on for talking about Joshi wrestling and learning about Joshi. I also had a roundtable discussion with Ruthless Talk, Phil Kahn, and Laugh Not Famous, along with one of the people that I host podcasts with occasionally, in what I call the most civil Cody versus Rock debate of all time. And this is before Cody gave up his spot to The Rock, so it kind of predated that as well. And it's just like a free-flowing conversation, you know? I don't feel like we, as a community in wrestling, there's a lot of talking at each other, but there's not a lot of listening to each other and listening to points. And that's what my podcast is about. It's about listening. It's like, okay, this is how I see wrestling. Okay, this is how I see it. Let's see if we could understand the other viewpoint, and let's see if we agree or not agree. And then I have the TikTok and Instagram page. Instagram is usually where if I think of a meme, I'll post it there. But TikTok is like my main source of just kind of retrospective or current content. So I usually do 1.5 to 2 minute videos on stuff that happens on the WWE, AEW, or TNA television shows. And I just give my thoughts and opinions on it. You know, I try to look at it from a non-biased point of view, where I'm just like, this is where I could see the story going. They say, hey, I noticed this. I wonder if anybody else noticed that. And, you know, it's really like cool how like fast everything's been going a little bit, because this time last year I think I had something like 500 followers, or maybe less than 500, and now I'm up to 3,700. So it's just kind of cool to see the growth of it. And again, I'm still like a blip on the radar when it comes to like wrestling content creation, but I'm glad that I'm slowly but surely gaining a following. So I'm very grateful for everybody who supports and continues to watch.
You'll be surprised how many people behind the scenes are watching you. You don't even know it. which is the great thing about it. And that should be everybody's motivator. Whoever's watching, that should be your motivator to just keep pushing out content. One thing I like about you, Richie, is that every day you're posting, and I think everybody should follow suit on that, because you never know who's watching you. Like, you may have said, oh, you're just like a small dot on the radar, but that might not be true. You might actually be showing more of yourself than you think. And I think a lot of us deal so much with the numbers that, like, you're not realizing, yo, the big people might be watching. WWE be watching those TikToks, like, whether we know it or not. So for those watching, make sure you're being consistent like Richie. I see you tag me on those every day. I do watch them whenever I can, and it's pretty often I do. So keep up the great work on that. And your attention to detail is good to like on every event that happens. If like Liv Morgan gave Dom her hotel key, you're making a video on it. If somebody Ricochet got injured, there's something that you're posting, and people should follow suit on that. So I enjoy your content, and you just keep doing great. Your 3,700 isn't the top for you. You're gonna be farther than that.
Thank you so much.
Do you have like a specific brand that you like the most? Do you prefer WWE, AEW, TNA, or do you kind of just like dabble in everything, or how does that work for you in your mind, like how you make your content?
For my content, I just started focusing on WWE because I noticed more traction with the WWE content, because like we were talking about earlier, it just kind of like WWE's been blowing up as a brand recently, with, Rock coming back, Cody Rhodes catching fire, Roman Reigns catching fire, all the memes that are coming out with Roman Reigns that people are using. And now it's transcended into pop culture. So I started with WWE. AEW I would do every once in a while, but then I was kind of like hesitant because AEW is such a divisive topic that it's just like people aren't talking about the actual show or the video that I'm posting. They're just saying like, oh, AEW is such and such, whether it's good or bad. And even if I criticize AEW, like not in like, hey, I'm picking on them. Like for me, like a big thing, I think I tagged you in a couple, I was like about like the rankings, I'm like, do we have rankings? Because I don't understand why Mercedes Moné is getting this shot at the TBS title if she's just re-signed. If they explain in the storyline, it's like, oh, she signed so she get a shot at the title, I'll be cool with that. But they never said that. And everyone would just kind of like move the goalpost if they were AEW fans, being like, oh, the TNT and the TBS championships are open challenge championships, so they're not affected by the rankings. And I'm just like, all right, cool. We just had a storyline with Adam Copeland going through the rankings so he could earn a shot at the TNT championship. And whenever they release the rankings, all the champions are on there. So again, I just want explanation, like AEW, great wrestling. I like what I see. I'm a fan of a lot of talent there, like Christian Cage, Samoa Joe, Tony Storm, Daniel Garcia, Matt Menard. I enjoy him tremendously on commentary. Even the learning tree I find like funny, it's a
gimmick
like,
that I realized was good. It's a gimmick I was surprised was pretty good with Chris Jericho.
Yeah, well, like I wasn't surprised where I'm just kind of like when he was the FTW champion the first night out and he did like the I Am the Learning Tree theme song and it sounded like a Def Rebels theme song. I'm like, he's leaning into it. It's gonna work, and I don't know how I feel about it. But again, it worked well for him. But the overall thing with AEW, I do make more AEW content than I did. It's just that it's just such a divisive topic that it just like there's no actual discussion going on. So that's why I'm a little hesitant, but that's still not going to stop me from posting about it.
And what's crazy is I'm a part of a bunch of Facebook groups, and all I see on these groups is everybody taking pictures of the hard cam side. It's like, come on, bro. Whether like the first, I could talk about this could be a whole nother podcast episode of just AEW and like how everybody calls it all empty wrestling, or like how the arena is always empty. AEW doesn't have a monopoly on arenas like WWE does, so they can't go where WWE goes in terms of like Barclays Center or like wherever WWE goes. They can't really follow. I think there's like some legal reasons behind it, so they're stuck with these like small town shows, and a lot of times these fans are either WWE fans or they don't know about AEW, because even with the cheap ticket prices, it's like they're barely selling these places out, and sometimes the demographic doesn't like wrestling, so it's not because they can't sell at arenas. Their place is just where they're at, so people need to understand that.
I was actually at World's End, the AEW pay-per-view, and my friend, no kidding, he texted me, "Is the arena full?" And then I took like a panoramic of the entire arena, and it was it was pretty much sold out. You know, it was like 99.9%
Right.
full. And even I made a video because I took the video of the whole Adam Cole Devil reveal, and the top comment on there is all empty wrestling, and I'm just like, actually it was pretty packed. And still, it's just like, I didn't ratio the guy because, you know, there's that AEW bias, but I'm just kind of like, that's what happens when you have a narrative and you just kind of run with it. You know, even if it's not entirely true, if it gets enough traction, then that's what happens. And of course AEW's in a down period, so this is the part where it's like, okay, they're not the hot brand anymore. How are they going to bounce back from it, if they're going to bounce back from it, and so on.
And I went to AEW Grand Slam, the one in Arthur Ashe Stadium last year. It was pretty packed. It wasn't like these small town shows where like only the front row is viewable. I was in like maybe the top row, maybe 200-300 section, which I paid $30 for. Fantastic view from it anyway. It was great view, but there were a lot of people there, and I get it. New York is a populated place, and it's not the population of New York is like more than some entire states, to be fair. It just goes to show that when there's people there that like it, they're gonna go and watch the show, and people don't understand that. So but I agree with you on the fact that there's too much of that going on where they're just too busy defending AEW to understand, like, look, it's okay if there's, or even not even defending AEW, like trying to go at AEW. It's like, look, demographics or people just can't go. It's okay. And at the end of the day, these wrestlers they're all friends with each other. It's not like this is real life where like Mercedes Moné hates Bailey or tries to pretend she doesn't exist. Bailey was there for Sasha's freaking TBS title win. And then,
you know, and it's just like, it's just wild nowadays that it's like people are busy fighting about which brand's better. And I'm just kind of like, everyone does realize all of them are friends, right? You know, just because they hype up their company in the press, I'm like, what else do you want them to do? Do you want to be like, oh, I don't like what my company's doing right now? Like, you could, but then what's going to happen? You know what I mean? You're going to get buried and you're under a contract. So,
and they're paid to do
it's
that.
just a funny thing. Yeah. And it's like, that's why it's like the tribalism is like, it's always going to be there in any medium. And the wrestling, it's just kind of like, it's more petty than it is like personal, I feel like. And it's just like, even the shot that like when we're recording this, where the night after they did like the AEW reference in NXT, where it's like all the AEW stars were together.
Yeah, Cody,
you know, and
yep.
and it's like, it was a fun little jab. You know, it wasn't like degrading their time in AEW or anything like that. It was just like a fun, like, hey, if you got the reference, you got the reference. If you didn't, then it was just another segment on the show. You know, so I think, again, I watch it all. I'm not really a stickler, because back when I became a fan, all I had was Raw, SmackDown, Velocity, and Heat. So,
and you brought me way back with Velocity and Heat. You know, I never actually saw an episode of Velocity because I never knew where to find it as a kid. But I knew that Sunday Night Heat was on Spike TV. So I always saw Heat, which was usually just the Raw recap with like 1 or 2 matches. But Velocity I never got to see. But I thought it was pretty cool anyway.
Velocity was also on Spike, but it was at 10 o'clock. On Saturdays.
Oh, that's why I had to go to bed. I was a kid.
No, I loved Velocity as a kid, especially because it's just like, SmackDown was my brand as a kid. You know, I was a big SmackDown guy. My first episode of WWE was SmackDown. It was in 2002, and it was Benoit and Guerrero against Rock and Edge. And the finish was Benoit had Rock in like the crossface, and everyone knew who The Rock was at this point, like in my school. So I was just like, oh wow, and this Brock Lesnar comes out and he's like a beast and he's like intimidating Rock, and Rock had no choice but to tap, and Rock's just like staring a hole at Brock, and then Hogan hit Brock with a chair because they were going to have their match the next week. And then I kind of fell off a little bit, and then I came back. It was that episode of Brock Lesnar and Kurt in the Iron Man match. And then never missed an episode since. Yeah. So it was just like a crazy time period of just like my introductions to wrestling are just like Brock Lesnar Iron Man matches. I'm just like, oh great, we're gonna have Iron Man matches for every week of SmackDown. But these are just kind of like special events that happen.
Lesnar, his thing with Spike Dudley will always stick out to me as one of the wildest moments ever. That and the guy with the one leg.
Oh, Zach Gowen?
Yeah. Oh my God. Seeing him like busted open with the chair, and then you can't help but feel bad for the guy, but you know that they're probably working together like as best friends. I think even Zach like went on in like a podcast or like an interview and said that Brock was one of the best he worked with, like during that whole segment.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, and apparently the reason why he he got bled so much was Cassius Ono or Chris Hero told the story on like a shoot interview that like the dark match before his segment was Prince Nana, and Prince Nana helped train Zach Gowen. So Arn Anderson was teaching Zach how to do the blade, and apparently Zach was like pretending like he was like but he was just focused on
he wasn't listening
the match. Yeah. So the blade was a little bit too sharp, and that's why he like bled so much. It made Brock look like a monster though.
It helped get him over, that's for sure. Because I could just imagine. And then like the whole wheelchair thing, pushing him down the stairs. Like SmackDown was a wild time back then. Like I don't think they could get away with that now. Just like a lot of other things.
Absolutely not. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a different time. Definitely a different time.
So what got you into the wrestling space? Like how long have you been watching wrestling? I know you said you got into it around like the Ruthless Aggression era, kind of like how you just mentioned Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle and all of them. Like what got you into like wrestling in general?
I think because it's like when I was a kid, I wasn't really great at any of the sports, with a ball, because I would keep getting hit by it. I saw like the wrestling and like these larger than life characters, these guys, and I had a friend in school who liked wrestling, and he introduced it to me, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually pretty cool, and then it's like once you know about like, all right, there's Brock, there's Kurt. Oh, that's Undertaker. Oh, he looks pretty cool. Oh, there's John Cena. He's coming up with the rep. Oh, there's Rey Mysterio. He's like a Spider-Man superhero kind of guy. And then once that happens, the wheels start turning, and then all these larger than life storylines. And this was like what sealed it for me was like the story they were telling with Eddie Guerrero. Because him and Chavo were tag champs, and he was the U.S. champ at the same time, and I thought that was so cool. Like there would be SmackDowns there would be SmackDowns where he would like defend the U.S. and the tag team titles all in one night. I thought that was so cool, and the story they were telling with Eddie, up to Chavo betraying him, and then his story with Brock, his story with Kurt, his story with JBL, and just being that center focus was just like so cool to see that character grow so much within, I think it was even like 6 months, of that entire story of just Eddie like rising to the top to become a main eventer. And then you had Cena kind of like on the rise, proving himself too. And then you had Ray and Rob Van Dam, and those were my guys too. So it's like, that's why I was like a big SmackDown guy. And then I found out later along the lines was Raw, but Raw wasn't really my vibe because I'm like, Evolution, these guys are lame, There's nobody that could kind of like hook me in. But when Benoit went to Raw, then I'm like, all right, let me check out Raw and see what they got, and then I got attached to like Chris Jericho, you got Edge in there, so it's like it was a different kind of vibe, but I just got drawn to SmackDown a little bit more.
I think as a kid and like as an adult, I feel like I enjoy the heels more than I do the baby faces, because they're so entertaining and like they give the reason for the baby face to be the hero, and they talk so much shit, the storylines are wild. But as a kid, I was big on the baby faces and I hated the heels. So I think that's in my head, SmackDown had all the baby faces and all the good guys, while Raw was like all the people that like to start stuff and were like all the heels. So I guess in my eyes, sort of like what you like, was more of a fan of SmackDown. But growing up, I started to appreciate more like the heel factions and the heel turns, and then more watching Monday Night Raw. Now I'm a big SmackDown guy, but that's because of Roman. But like it goes to show that he was technically a heel, even though everybody loves him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do appreciate heels as time goes on. I remember, and this is like a very obscure like heel, Gregory Helms was like the first heel I actually liked.
Hurricane, oh my god.
With him with the cruiserweight title, that was my title as a kid. I love the cruiserweight division, even though it could have been so much more, but I didn't know that at the time I was a kid. And also the theme song, the Titantron, even though it's memed to death now, I enjoyed it immensely. And I enjoyed Gregory Helms' work. He was kind of like doing the pseudo like MMA kind of style. That was pretty cool and different for the cruiserweight division. And then with the heels in general, it's like any superhero story. You have Batman, you have Superman. What makes them interesting? Their rogues gallery. All right, who do they face? You have the classics. You have Joker, Lex Luthor. You have you even have like filler villains like Calendar Man. You have like all those kind of guys. And then it's up to them to kind of be like, all right, let's see what kind of side we can bring out of the protagonist or this hero. And that's what I find so interesting with the stories. And I think that's why Cody's worked so well and why people haven't booed him, because his stories have brought out different sides of him. And that's why I think when John and Roman were the head baby faces of their time, you didn't really get to see that. Like, every John Cena program was the same. Every Roman Reigns program was the same, you know? So I think we're getting better at getting like true like baby faces that we want to cheer and true heels that we want to boo.
And that's where the storytelling comes in. And that's why I think Triple H has done a fantastic job of doing that. Like, things may not make sense at the moment, and this has always been the case for wrestling. Like, things may not make sense at the moment, but when it comes time to whether it be WrestleMania season or like one of the big four events, it's gonna make sense. Or they're gonna throw a curveball at us completely out of nowhere, and it's gonna just make more storylines that's gonna keep them busy for months and months, maybe even years to come, which is amazing. Like, apparently WrestleMania 39, they had planned for Roman to lose, but they said, just do another year. 40 will be better. And then it actually was. It actually was.
Nice round number.
That too. Maybe it could be the round number. You know, some people are OCD like that with like the nines and the zeros. But I think that was one of the best WrestleManias ever. Was that the way it ended?
Was like my almost introduction to content creation, because the one video that got me a lot of traction right away was 2 weeks before SummerSlam in 2023, I think it was. The one where Jay and Roman were having their tribal warfare match. I said Jimmy is going to turn on Jay at SummerSlam, because I'm just I'm following the story beats, you know, and like Jay, like when he was doing his, like, you know, remember the promo, and I'm out too, and then they both kick Roman. Like, Jay was going on, it's like, Jimmy, Mr. Prom King, Mr. this, Mr. that, Jimmy always the best one. I'm like, that's kind of a weird thing just to say out of nowhere, you know? And then like Jimmy got taken out, and I'm just like, okay, like this is like prime setup for this. And I got some pushback for it, because there was one where it's like, I remember the comment, Jimmy's not going to turn on his own brother. I'm just like, and I wrote back, I'm like, Solo's their own brother. He turned on him, you know? And I'm just like, I'm like, have you not watched wrestling before? Because every brother turns on each other sooner or later.
Not like Kane betraying the Undertaker in a Buried Alive match. Like, that would never happen.
Yeah, you know, and I'm just gotta like, I got a little patsy in the backseat after that whole thing happened. But I learned that very important for content creation, that a lot of people will tell you're wrong, but very few will say that you're right, you know, unless you're like a big like creator. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you don't really take anything personal.
And you can't. And I think that's one thing I would say as a content creator, as we kind of shift right now into like the content creation side of things. It's like, if you're going to be a content creator, you better understand, if you're going to have some crazy hot takes, people are going to talk so much shit about you, and they're going to talk back. Like, they're going to be destroying your statement, whether it's about you like, you know how many times I get like hate comments because of all the Roman Reigns things I do? Like, you know, when I see you go live, you do the acknowledge. Most of my content involves, you know, like missing my tribal chief or whatever. You know, I'm a big Roman fan. That's just how it is. He's the reason I got into content creation, so I always owe it to him. But whenever I would do like the 1, 2, 3 Roman retains, no matter what, there's always somebody that's like, oh, you're riding him, or you're glazing him, or all, you know, all those stupid terms that they try to do. And it's like, bro, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna cry. You think I'm gonna cry over that? Like, no, you're not paying my bills. Are you the TikTok creator program? Absolutely not. So you're irrelevant if you're gonna try and legit insult me. Like, it's fine if you put your Cody Rhodes gif. I enjoy that, but try not to legit insult me, or you're just talking to an echo chamber.
Yeah, you know, and like you have these people, like I shoot my video a certain way where it's like, because I always wanted to be kind of different when it came to content creation, because before I went like head first into the Wrestle Talk community, I guess, I studied. I'm like, all right, what are people doing that are getting them a following, and how can I be different? Were the two things that were kind of in my mind. So I just kind of like, what if the video's kind of shot like this? So it's kind of like a side view of my face. And then how about I do like the quick cuts, because the first 3 seconds of any video is the most important, because that's like your grab, that's your attention sign. And I had some comments, not a lot, but like enough that I paid attention, where they're like, it's like, focus your like make your camera to the center. It's like, then it's like another one's like, stop putting HDR as your video shoot. Like my eyes can't, like I can't see or whatever, or like that. I'm just like, man, I didn't think I was that ugly, you know. And I'm just like again, you kind of have like fun with it, and it's just like, the thing is, like, these people, they don't have, like, they're telling me, it's like, oh, why don't you do this? People are willing to give advice, but gives you the knowledge of giving this advice, you know what I mean? There are people like, oh, I've done this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, okay, well, it's like, I don't like comparing followers, but it's like, you have 6 and you don't have any videos on your account right here, and I've gotten a little bit of traction right here. So, you know, it's like you kind of like pick and choose, like, where to accept like criticism.
If we try to satisfy everybody that's in this world, we'll never make anybody happy. So at the end of the day, do what makes you good. Obviously, it's totally fine to take criticism or understand how you can improve yourself, but if the majority's saying things are fine, those outliers, they could go kick rocks, honestly, if they're gonna try and criticize anything you do. I have people that do the same thing. Like, I don't think it's like linked to like camera or whatever, but they'll try to get me to like believe a certain thing, whether it's about wrestling or in life. And I'm just like, are you paying are you the TikTok creator program? Are you paying my freaking bills?
Yeah. And another thing that I want to focus on is like the very like neutral thing with my content, where it's like, you won't see me wear like wrestling wardrobe or shirts that often. Like, you'll see me wear like The Rock's like workout gear. You'll like again, the cutoff hoodies and the backwards hat were kind of like this was like the uniform for like 6 months. Because I'm just like, all right, if I'm in somebody's like FYP, they're gonna remember this outfit, and exactly. they're gonna be like, oh, that's the guy who said XYZ.
That's the guy who said Jimmy's gonna betray Jay. Yeah. I gotta watch again.
Yeah, it's just like, what crazy thing is he saying now, you know? And it's like, it's kind of like wrestling attire in certain ways, you know? It's like, I try to get something that kind of like grabs the attention, whether it's like, it's not what I'm saying, because I'm very uncomfortable when it comes like for intros where I'm like, oh, hey, it's your boy Richie Mars is back again with another video. I'm just kind of like, well, you could just kind of read it on my TikTok profile page, you know? It's like, if you're very curious, you could hit the follow button, you could look at the profile, you could see what happens, and then go off to the races from there.
And that goes into my question about TikTok, because like I said before in your intro, like you're always posting on there daily, multiple times a day, and even when you're live, you're pretty involved with the wrestling community, going on lives with people, participating in like those roundtable discussions and all that. There's also a lot of people that I know that have asked me this question, and I figured I'd ask you this question also. What would you say is something you tell somebody that's trying to get into the wrestling creation space? Like, is there something that would help them out? What would be like the first things you'd tell somebody getting into that space? Because it's very diluted. It's diluted now with a lot of people. So what would help them out?
A couple things. The first one is just consistency. You know, for a while, because the podcast I do came before me doing the TikTok stuff. And originally I was just posting for the podcast, but it wasn't getting any traction. And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. Why isn't this working? And it wasn't working because it's like, well, who's just going to listen to some schmo with a podcast? We have like hundreds of them, like especially wrestling ones. So I'm like, all right, what if I like build my name so it's like people are interested in listening? I'm like, okay, let's do that. And then I would do like more of the quick cut videos so it could like retain people's attention. And I'm like, okay, we could do that. And then I'm just like, all right, I used to do like throwback content, but it wasn't getting any traction. I'm like, okay, let me go more towards the current shows that are trending right now. And then I would just kind of watch what other people would do, and like Santi and Wheezy on TikTok, like how they would like do hashtags, how they would present their videos. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could do this and like take that from this. And another thing is, I would suggest is just experiment. You know, you never know what's gonna happen overnight. There are some videos that grow traction for me that I'm like, really, that one? Like like I didn't think it would be that like popular. Like I did like a Gunther King of the Ring video where it was like he's winning matches with different things, kind of like how Bret Hart did, you know, and it was like a discussion. I didn't think much of it, but then like right now it has like 180K views, you know, which is like major for me. And like even then it's like it's not really much time for like celebration. I'm like, all right, on to the next one, because I had a schedule posting of like I'm gonna try to get 4 videos a day when I first started. So I'm like 8 o'clock a.m., 12 p.m., 4 p.m., and then 8 p.m. And then now it kind of laxed to like 3 a day, or whenever like something like major happens, I'll try to like post it within there and give that video time to breathe, and then just kind of go on from there.
It's honestly, like you said, the videos, and same with me, the videos that I felt I didn't do that much effort in are the ones that end up being the most like popular, and the ones that I feel like I did like this perfect job. I edited it great on Filmora, 200-300. But then the ones that I did like minor stuff on 100,000 or 20,000, I'm like, bro, how does this algorithm work? And kind of like what, and I like what you said about with look at what other creators are doing, like Santi and Wheezy, for example, and others. I actually reference Santi like for my hashtags, because like I've been doing like for the longest like 30 hashtags, the max. And I don't know if that's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, or if maybe it's good because they're all relevant to each other. I've gotten the same traction with the 30 hashtags as I did with Santi's maybe like 5 or 6, which are pretty more broad, versus mine were like very specific. Roman Reigns, Dominic Mysterio, WWE, NXT, all these craziness. So it's interesting how like all that works. And I like what you said about experimenting, because first of all, the algorithm changes all the time. It's not the same as it was in 2020, where all you could do is put FYP for you page and you're famous. Now you actually got to do the work to figure out what works for you. But they changed the algorithm so much that you got to figure it out like the quickest way possible, because you got to be the first one to post about XYZ in order for your stuff to get traction. That's what I noticed. You can like, as soon as like stuff happens, you got to be quick, because there are media companies that do it faster than you. But if you can be one of those that are like ahead of the line, you're gonna get the traction. People are gonna look at you like as the person to reference for current news or funny skits or whatever the case may be.
And like a couple of videos, I'll give you like the 2 bookends of it. Like there was one where like people were saying like Punk was blown up in the Rumble, he didn't look good. I'm like, well, he kind of like, I started out with like a hook, you know, I'm like, oh, CM Punk's fine, you know, and I meant like he was fine in the Rumble. But the thing is, an hour after I posted that, that's when the news broke that he tore his triceps, and I'm just like, okay, at least like nobody is going to see this. And because like the algorithm was kind of down, of course that's when the algorithm picked my video up and it got to like 50K. It got, I don't want to say it got bad, because it's like, again, it's just like, it's funny in hindsight. I had to put like a comment saying this was recorded before the news broke about CM Punk's like triceps injury. But again, people don't like read the context of like either the comment or the video, and sometimes the first couple of seconds are what they gravitate to, which is fine. It's the internet. And then the other thing was when Sheamus came back, and you know, a lot of people were poking fun at his
burger after burger,
poking at his
that
weight
kind of stuff.
And I'm just kind of like, I'm like, all right, let me make a video on this, because I know this was going to be a topic, just by seeing like reactions of like not only like people I'm talking to, but people I'm seeing. And I'm like, when I posted that, then it got like over 100K in a couple days. And I'm just like, okay, that's like a good thing, because then it like gravitated more discussion, because I thought like, I'm like, guys, Sheamus looks fine. He's gonna be shredded in like 3-4 weeks anyway. But of course, it's just like everybody like has their opinion in the comments, and that's what I try to do with my videos, is try to get that discussion going.
People forget too, like for Sheamus specifically, like he was gone from, what was it, September of last year, and only came back like what, a month or 2 ago. That man was relaxing.
He was going to retire like a couple months before he came back on television, but then like treatment worked for him. So it's amazing that he actually came back at all. So I give him a lot of credit and a lot of props.
And I forget how long he's been with the company too, since like what, 2011? Like he's been with the company 13 years and he has not left.
Yeah, he debuted on the roster in 2009.
Oh, even earlier.
then,
Wow.
yeah, and he was in FCW before that too. And then and he was like a main eventer from the jump, like winning that whole John Cena
He beat Cena for the
tables
title.
match. Yeah, which a lot of people thought was a botch because the table kind of flipped over, or like it looked like it flipped over, so they thought it was going to be they were both going to go through the table at the same time. But no, that was meant to happen. Right. But yeah, it's always kind of funny with stuff like that.
It's creative because it never happened before, so it's like it makes it even more comedic for the people watching or for the people that are in the audience and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking about that, the WWE product at the moment, it's obviously different now with the Triple H era versus like the Vince McMahon era and everything going on from Ruthless Aggression, Attitude, and all that. What is your current thoughts on the product as of today? And if there's anything that sticks to you right now about the product that is being shown with WWE today?
I can honestly say I'm having the most fun watching wrestling than I have had almost in my entire fandom, like since like I was a kid. And I talk with my buddy on and off, and we just text back and forth, and we're just like, man, we're having so much fun, because before, like, in the like 2010s, it almost felt like I don't want to say a chore, but it just kind of felt like that sometimes, because SmackDown became like a 2-hour like recap of Raw in that era. You didn't really have much diversity in creative. It was the same guys on top. It was always John Cena, Randy Orton, Triple H, Edge. It was all these guys. They were just fighting each other. It didn't seem like anybody was kind of breaking that next level. And when people would, they would throw us a bone here and there with Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, maybe a Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. Like they would do that, but then the stories wouldn't not be up to snuff at all, and then like they would like break our hearts so many times, like the 2015 Rumble, when Bryan was out, and then Ziggler was out, and then Ambrose was out, and then Bray was out, and then we're left with Roman versus Big Show and Kane, and we're just like, oh man, we've seen this. It's like, how long, like with Vince, the story was with him was that he never wanted to be on TV because he didn't like seeing himself being old. But then you look on the later sides of his creative of the final days, Goldberg in the main event, Brock in the main event, Big Show. You didn't really have that many like diversities in the main event. But now what I'm seeing in today's product is you're getting more time for matches. There's not as many camera cuts, so I'm not getting seasick while watching Raw. You're getting those behind the scenes like segments where it's like you're seeing like interactions that are happening behind the scenes. You're getting those long camera shots. You're getting different transitions, like when Dominic Mysterio shoved the camera out of the face when Rhea Ripley got attacked, and that camera followed all the way down to the ring for Raw for the next match with the commentators. Just little things like that I really do appreciate. Even when Ricochet was written off, supposedly, like all that kind of happened. I always like when they do something different, and it seemed like for a while they were just kind of going through the motions, which makes sense because we would hear stories of the script being written up and then rewritten as the show was going live, and it was just chaotic. Now you could see like it's more calm, it's more relaxed. You're getting more talent that wouldn't have had a shot before have a shot now. Ilya Dragunov on the main roster is just still wild to me, and because I think he's probably the best like bell-to-bell wrestler of almost any company, and now he's getting a chance to show out in the main roster. Like, that is just incredible for me, and he has that chance to succeed. So I'm just happy of where we are within the WWE realm right now.
One of the things that I appreciate that's very small is when the show starts, when they're walking with their suitcases, like that walk into the arena, and then when they follow them into the stage, like when they go through Gorilla and then like out the stage. I've started to appreciate that much more, and I see that more like after WrestleMania happened. Like I guess they were testing it with that, but it's had nothing but positive reactions. And then what else? When they have the championship matches, when Samantha announces it inside the ring, there's like that new camera. I don't know if it's like an 8K camera or something. And they put like Challenger on the. It's so nice. It's something different we never seen before.
Yeah, and it just shows that they're not afraid to experiment, where before it just looked like they were going through the motions, and they're like, this is the one way we're doing wrestling. This is the one way we're doing WWE. Now that we've had all these changes, you could get to see these experimentals, and those little things are going to add up into those bigger things and going to make the product so much nicer. I could buy a picture, I could buy a poster, I could buy that. But if I don't have the frame to kind of like make it quote unquote prettier, then the picture is going to not pop out as much. But now with the frame, it's going to pop out even more.
There's a TikTok video that explained the Triple H versus Vince thing very nice, and it went like this: imagine for all your life you went to this amazing steakhouse, fantastic, great steak, and like they just make it 10 out of 10, and you have this for years and years and years, for decades. All of a sudden there's a new steakhouse in town. All of a sudden they have A5 Wagyu beef, they got the premium, like the most marbled steak you can ever imagine. And now the old steakhouse is closed down. Now you think that's the best steak you ever had, but you didn't know that it existed until they moved in. So you've been fed like this good stuff, but didn't realize that it could go even further. And I think now with Triple H, it's like he's giving us that revelation of like, yo, there's more to wrestling than what Vince gave us. Not directly, because he's still the son-in-law anyway. He's not like gonna insult him in any way, but like, this is what we're doing. We're taking this company to new heights where the audience is gonna freaking love it. And like, it shows, because like the amount of celebrities that were at WrestleMania behind commentary, I went through it with my fiance. It was like, we had Vanessa Hudgens, we had Lil Baby, Snoop Dogg's a freaking Hall of Famer, we had Drewski, we had so many, T-Pain, people you wouldn't think are wrestling fans, sitting front row in commentary watching the show. Now it's probably just for Mania, it's to show it's popular, but the fact that they even had the time to do that, to watch the show, shows how popular it has got.
Yeah, and it's very meticulous, and I feel like Triple H is a very meticulous guy, especially when it comes to detail, because Triple H, now that you have this guy in charge of WWE Creative who was once a wrestler, who knows wrestling better than somebody who's actually been through it and actually knows how the talent feels and can relate to talent on that level. Vince didn't have that connection as long as he was in creative. He created this whole wrestling empire. He can never relate to the wrestlers themselves. And even Randy Orton did an interview about how when he was 35, that's when his back started acting up, and he's like, Vince, can I take some time off? And Vince's response is, Mother Nature gets us all. And
yep, I remember
that's kind of eye-opening in that's how he saw the business for the longest time. He would rather people be run to the ground than give people time off so they could recover and then come back even better. And now we're seeing the best version, I feel like, of mostly everybody in WWE right now because of that.
And it makes me believe everything CM Punk said during his podcast with Colt Cabana about like the staph infection and everything. It makes me really think that all was 100% true. I know Punk won the lawsuit, but it's just like there is 100% truth to there. No pun intended. Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Yeah, and with Punk, he's always like he's always a divisive topic too, because it's like people either like Punk, strongly dislike him. Personally, like, I would consider myself like a little bit pro Punk in that camp, because when I was growing up, and when you're growing up, people are like trying to peer pressure you into like the drugs and the alcohol, but I'm just like, oh, here's this guy who says it's cool not to do any of those things, and he's actually presenting himself really well. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, okay. So I don't need to go to that in order to feel accepted. I could create my own path, so to speak. It might take a little bit longer, and it's not going to be as easy as it is to go this way, but I could go that way, and still be okay. And with Punk, like, was he like a hypocrite in a lot of things that he said? Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like majority of wrestlers are like that. So I think why people like put like a spotlight on Punk is because he is outspoken, and it is an easy way to kind of like debunk what he said just in general, with what he tweeted at Miz when he was working at WWE backstage, and now he's apologizing to Miz. It's like, has Punk been right in every single situation? No, absolutely not. But then again, when is anybody else in wrestling ever right about every situation 100% of the time?
And it goes to show you too, like, if CM Punk could come back to WWE after all the shit talking he did about Hunter, bro, anybody can come back. Naomi came back. Mercedes Moné only went to AEW, I think, because probably the money too was probably a big reason, and the creative freedom that AEW has. But if AEW wasn't a thing, I'm sure she would have been back in WWE. and with no burned bridges or anything like that. And I like that Triple H is being accepting of that, because we know how Vince was. Vince, you didn't want to double cross Vince or screw with him or anything like that. He will take that to the grave, and he would have Vince would have never hired Punk to this day. I mean, I don't remember exactly when Vince fully pulled out of TKO shares or whatever, but it's actually pretty relieving to see how that is today, and how wrestlers feel like they can go to these leaders and feel that way. Like Randy Orton talking about Vince, that's insane. I get you're a big Randy's a big star and he makes you money, but would you rather that and have short-term money, or Randy be, God forbid, 6 feet under because of something that happened with his back or a bad injury? And that would be on Vince to do it, to feel bad.
I feel like a lot of wrestlers had Stockholm syndrome with that past regime, you know what I mean? Because Vince did give them all these opportunities. Vince did make them big enough stars. But the thing is, there were better ways to treat the talent at the same time. And sometimes he wouldn't react the way they would. I was reading Becky Lynch's book, and when she was legit nervous of telling Vince that she was pregnant. She asked Seth, am I gonna is he gonna fire me for this? And Seth is like, I don't think so. The fact that there was that hesitation of no, absolutely not. It was I don't think he's gonna fire you. It's just kind of like that. But thankfully, Vince was very happy for Becky, during that whole thing. So it's Vince isn't completely heartless in that story. But the fact that there was that hesitation where it's I don't think you're gonna get fired for this, but it's not 100% certainty. That's a little concerning.
My fiance's reading that book. She told me that same exact story about what you just told me. So as soon as you said it, I was like, yep, exactly. She's up to certain parts too. So she usually tells me when she gets back from work what chapters she read and all that. So it's actually interesting to hear from her what's going on in Becky's life. She was actually earlier tonight putting on some of the clips that Becky talked about in her book. She wanted to watch them on Peacock to see them live in action. So it's really cool that even Becky's book is bringing people to want to watch her matches and watch just the product in general because of who she is.
Especially because you have all these stars that are signing with agencies. I think Damian, Tiffany Stratton, I think Punk, the news broke today that they signed with Paradigm, which is a huge agency. I think Cody Rhodes is being represented by Endeavor, which is the same that The Rock or John Cena or Roman. Yeah, they're being represented. So when they get a Hollywood offers or any offers like that, that's now you have them being represented by agencies now. Now it's not WWE owns everything, and I think that was the big thing for a long time. WWE has to own everything. This is our universe, no pun intended, but this is ours. You can't have it. But what I think people are now realizing, it's okay to delegate. It's okay to delegate to other forms of entertainment, and it's okay for all this to happen. We're seeing the TNA and NXT crossover stuff. People wouldn't have thought in a million years that this would happen, even though it's not a big crossover pay-per-view yet. It's still pretty cool to see that we're getting recognition from other companies. Yeah. So it's pretty cool to see that we're getting stuff that we never thought in our wildest dreams would happen.
And that's the beauty of wrestling. When Jordan, I wasn't expecting Jordan Grace in NXT, but when that ambulance siren went off, I think that's the loudest I've seen the NXT crowd. I know it's not a huge arena, but you just heard the ohs going on, and you almost felt like you were there too. Then you see everybody who reacts to it, your regular streamers that react to it, and you see their reaction. You just realize how big of a deal this is. And part of me feels like this is the stuff that's going on is stuff Triple H probably wished happened while he was a superstar, and he's bringing this in alongside Michaels with NXT also. And it's a great way to experiment with NXT because that gives the NXT stars the opportunity to work with other stars from other promotions, and if it works out, then they just bring it to the main roster, just like the North American Women's title. Now they always just experiment there and then bring it to the main roster.
Especially because with NXT, they're now on signed to CW in the near future. So it gives the brand some momentum going on to the CW, being you should follow this brand because you're not sure what's going to happen. It's giving them some good momentum and some good traction. So it's gotten to the point where their viewership numbers are almost rivaling AEW's viewership. and that's pretty interesting to me, because originally AEW was the one that kicked NXT off the night, and now we're in a situation where, again, they're not competing against each other, but again, now we're back in competition with stuff, and it's just pretty cool to see because competition makes everything better. And I think the more people realize it, the more that I feel like there would be like peace and harmony within the wrestling community. But that's never going to happen within any community.
Unfortunately, that's just not the case. And it goes back to what I said. It's like all these wrestlers are friends anyway. So it's like, what, like the fans are taking it so personal. Like, oh, AEW did this and that, or NXT's not making these things. But competition makes it fun, just like you said. And it makes the leaders who run these shows think outside the box, and that's a reward for everybody. That puts some people over, and that makes the audience happy. So I'm going to try and make it quick because we're getting to the 58-minute mark on this. I don't want to keep you here too long. So what I'm going to do for these last sections is I'm going to give you 2 questions about the current storylines going on in WWE, and then I have some questions for you from members of our community that actually contributed some questions for tonight's episode, and then we'll finish it off with like some final quick thoughts and questions, and then we'll call it a day on that.
Sounds good, man.
So there's a lot of storylines going on right now on Raw and SmackDown. One of the main ones on Monday Night Raw, as you can probably guess, is Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. What do you think of the storyline at the moment and how wild it's getting? Like, what do you think could happen with this?
I made a couple of videos on it, and like the behind the scenes, like you could see in certain shots, like, Liv getting out of a passenger side of a car, and then you see in the next shot Finn Balor getting out of the driver's side of that same car a couple of minutes later, and then you saw on Raw, you had Finn Balor take the key card on the table and place it in the pocket, now somebody in my comments said that was like a different key card, but again, it was placed there for a reason. All these like subtle in wrestling, all these subtle things that are happening in front of us, then paying attention. We also had Dom and Liv exit the same room, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of like paying attention behind like right in front of us and all these scenes that are happening. And I think that's what was missing with storylines to begin with. It's rewarding the viewer for paying attention. Because for so long for wrestling, I feel like everything was just like straightforward. It was a very like, I think we want show, don't tell. And there was a lot of telling of like, this person is like this person's like that. This is why they hate each other. But now with this storyline specifically, you're getting a lot of like behind the scenes thing, and gets people talking, so much so that somebody made a 10-minute response video to one of my comments telling me I was wrong. So it's like it just shows that people are, but it's like I appreciate it because it just shows how people are invested in this story and like talking about it. And I think when I said like, because I think like Liv and Finn are like the masterminds, because in my mind Finn's gonna go with Priest and Liv is gonna go with Rhea when she's ready to come back. And but I think people misconstrued that in me saying that Finn and Liv are together as the couple. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's on me. I should probably make that a little bit more clear, but it's like, that's what I meant with them being the masterminds. It doesn't mean like they're in a relationship, but I think like a lot of people kind of like their mind kind of jumps to that. But it does make sense because Finn won the world title. Priest had the Money in the Bank. Priest is world champion. Finn Balor is asking Priest, it's like, oh, I thought we were going to do tag titles. And Priest is like, oh, I got world champion stuff to do. I'd feel like a little bit rubbed the wrong way there. And then we had on this recording, the past Raw, the Go Home show, like Priest is like, oh, if you could beat Balor, Judgment Day's banned from ringside. And you see Balor's face and he's like, what? And you had that build up even last year with Priest saying, I'm the leader of the Judgment Day during the whole War Games thing. And then he lost War Games. So there's enough reason to oust Priest from there. And I think it's just like not only Liv's revenge tour, but it's also Finn's revenge tour as well. So I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Also, there was a briefcase in one of their segments with Finn Balor's demon logo on it. So I don't know if that's foreshadowing to Money in the Bank, but that would be wild if Finn Balor cashed in on Damian Priest and all of a sudden you see Liv Morgan there by his side.
It would be pretty wild. I have a different pick for Money in the Bank. I think the main event, Jey Uso gets it.
He's gonna get it?
I mean, the thing is, it's like you can only lose big matches for so long before you finally win one and be believable. And I think Money in the Bank is the perfect opportunity and place for Jey Uso to grab that. Because again, you don't need to do because everyone's doing like, oh, Bloodline Civil War, it's coming in War Games. I'm like, you don't have to do it this year. You know what I mean? You could build this for a while if you really wanted to, and I don't think they're in the process of rushing it right now. But people are like, oh, Rock's getting old. I'm like, well, he was 51 this year, 52, 53. He's still going to probably be the same size,
Yeah,
he's going to be fine.
That man's in the gym all the time. He ain't going to be like any older when he's 54, 55. He'll be all right.
Yeah. So I think it's I think we have time for that.
Fun fact, I am going to Money in the Bank, and when I found out that Jey Uso is going to be in it, the first thing I said in my head was, I should try to change my seat so I'm in that same exact section. So if he comes out of the audience, like I can be on camera and I'll be like, oh shit, it's Jey. And then you just see me on TV waving my arms like a freaking madman. Like I could see Jey winning, or I could see Finn Balor getting it if they are foreshadowing with that briefcase that was behind the scenes.
Yeah, it look like, again, I like how now we have stories that can go multiple different directions, where before it's like, all right, this is the path we're going, whether hell or high water, this is the way we're going to go. And now we have multiple different pathways of this story. It's like a choose your own adventure. I really do enjoy it.
And it keeps people guessing, because like then there's rumors of everything. As soon as there's like a rumor, every freaking media article company has like a poster with the person's face on it, and then boom, they're wrong. They're all wrong. Something else happens. Sometimes I think WWE even makes like those rumors themselves just to like screw over the audience, so they don't like think everything's so predictable.
I wouldn't be surprised. The media cycle is pretty funny to me.
And then speaking of the bloodline, you just mentioned it earlier. How would you create the storyline leading to WrestleMania? So you mentioned earlier you don't have to do it like coming up soon. How would you do it if you had the chance?
Well, I like trying to look at like context clues with everything like that. I'm not sure if is Roman still having the Air like Jordan thing happening.
It's canceled.
It's canceled. Oh, yeah, that's a bummer.
So stupid. I wanted to get all of the merch and all that.
Because I was just saying, because his like Air Jordans were named the Bloodline. I'm just like, well, he kind of still has to be in the Bloodline for him to release shoes that are named the Bloodline. But with the whole thing is like what you could do with Roman, because he is so obsessed with Seth Rollins right now, depending when Seth's ready to get back. Like, I would have their first match back be against each other first. You build that up at a SummerSlam, you build that up, and you have one or like either of them win. I would go with Seth just because it continues the story of Roman can't beat Seth. And his obsession with Seth cost him, when Solo Sikoa's eyes, the Bloodline's title.
Yep, exactly.
You know what I mean? And then you could like tease tension even during the rest of the year. And you could make Roman and Solo the WrestleMania match, build Solo up a little bit. And with the whole thing there, I think a lot of people want Rock and Roman for Vegas. And that's a tremendous place to do it. But I'm like, you can drag that out a little bit more, let them because we already built this relationship with the final boss and the tribal chief. Like, you could build that more. And that's why when Cody did the promo where it's like, I want to face you but not at WrestleMania, and brought The Rock to face Roman, I'm just like, man, there's so much more meat on the bone. When they finally got that more interesting path, in my opinion, which was Roman and Rock being a team, I was like, oh, now we can start planting seeds for the Roman Reigns babyface turn, and I'm like, now we have something here. And I think The Rock having, for lack of a better term, minions, it's like, who would have thought that The Rock and Tama Tonga would be in a faction together, and now we have this opportunity for The Rock to kind of be like this mob boss of being like look, we only protected you, Roman, because you were the right guy at the time. Now you're not that guy anymore. You're not that guy, pal. And then you have Roman atone for all his sins that he's done throughout the entire deal. You could rebuild that relationship with Seth, that relationship with Cody, and Cody actually predicted everything that was happening to the Roman. First Jey will leave you, then Jimmy, Paul, then Solo, then Paul Heyman becomes an advocate again. you know, and all this is coming to pass. And then you could have this giant redemption story, and that could start at WrestleMania 41, have Solo and Roman, and then you have Cody and Rock as the main event of WrestleMania. Because I'm not sure if Rock would go for a SummerSlam. I think Rock is WrestleMania or bust.
As someone who's already booking my flight and hotel to Vegas, I'm kind of salty on that, and I would love to see Rock and Roman, but I actually do agree with you on some of that. And like Cody Rock would be good, but you know, I gotta see once in my life Rock versus Roman, and if it's Vegas, I will do whatever it takes to convince Hunter to keep it that way.
Yeah, the thing is, it's just like, I think now that we're getting PLE, like SummerSlam in 2026 as being 2 nights, right? So yes. I think the reason why they're doing that is now they're going to do international WrestleMania. So I think they might save Rock and Roman for that.
Yeah, they're doing, it's either going to be London or Saudi. I think it's one of those two.
Yeah, so I think they might save Rock and Roman for that Mania and not the Vegas one, even though Vegas would be a perfect place for it. That's going to be such a disappointment,
man, if it does. Yes. If it's London, I could understand, but then if it's Saudi, it's like, then at that point they corrupted it because of the reason, like, you know, how they are behind the scenes. So I'd be kind of disappointed.
I think Saudi gets the Rumble. I think Saudi would get the Rumble.
I'd be fine with that, honestly. But like WrestleMania, bruh.
Yeah. Nah. But yeah, I'd be the same thing, because when I got my tickets to Forbidden Door, I was just like, man, I hope the card's good. And like when Swerve and Ospreay got confirmed, and everybody's like, oh, they should have saved it for All In. But for me, I'm just like,
no,
you know, selfishly, fine. I'm like, selfishly, we're good. We're good right now. We're eating well. I mean, I'm probably gonna, it's gonna be like 1:30 in the morning by the time the whole show's over. I'm just gonna be like in my seat, like, oh, but it's just like, it's gonna be a nice time, you know. It's like, again, with me, I'm just like, when I always say my ideas, I'm like, look, it's not my company. I don't work there. You know, they could do whatever they want. I'm like, this is just how I would see it. Like if I was like behind the scenes. But again, I'm not booking anything. I'm not being paid.
And with All In and all these, like, we could have, like, I don't know what Kenny Omega's status looks like right now with like surgery and all that, but if we could get Kenny and Ospreay for All In, fantastic. Yes. I am so upset at myself from last year because I could have booked a flight to Toronto for Forbidden Door 2, and that match was probably one of the best matches I've ever seen in a very long time between two wrestlers. Just like from suspense to just their move sets and just them working together was so amazing. So if I could see Kenny Omega, Ospreay, like an All In, that needs to happen. If not, then whatever. But if it can happen, please make it happen there. That's where it's supposed to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I got 2 questions from our community, actually one from your community and one from my community. And then afterwards we'll do our, I actually have one question after, and then we do final thoughts. So shout out to Shoot the Flick over on Twitter. His question was, what is one dream match you'd love to see?
This is always my go-to. I think the term dream match gets thrown around too easily because in my opinion, the term dream match is a match that could only happen in one's dreams. So it has 0% chance of happening. Like it is like it's dream or nothing. So my dream match is Eddie Guerrero versus AJ Styles.
Nice. That's a good one. I think in one of our previous podcast episodes, Eddie Guerrero was involved in that same question. I forgot who our guest had chosen, but Eddie Guerrero was one of the competitors. So that's a good answer. And then and then from my community, Luke Pedke, he was actually a guest also for episode 2. Who was your most hated wrestler growing up as a kid?
Ooh, most hated. Like I don't think I hated any wrestler, but if I had to choose one from my youth, probably Edge would have been one of them because he got Matt Hardy fired from Raw.
Oh my God, the freaking
the whole scandal. And then he took the title off Cena, like, so it's just like, man, this Edge guy is just like, he, you know, but now that Mr. Copeland is now in AEW, I've had a tremendous more amount of respect for him just as an individual, and he answered a couple of my questions on his podcast when he had it with Christian Cage. But I'm still a Christian Cage fan over Adam Copeland because I mean Christian Cage is my father, so you know.
He's all our fathers. I was about to say that.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. Like, his persona doing that is so amazing. I love Christian Cage as a heel. Even, I don't know if you were in my stream in the morning. I literally played 13 minutes of him being a heel on YouTube for everybody to listen to. It was the best thing ever, with like the whole father thing. It's Father's Day coming up too, so I know something's gonna happen on probably Collision like later this week.
Yeah, they announced a Father's Day special.
Yes,
Christian Cage.
oh my god, that's gonna be so good. I'm gonna watch it just for that. But shout out to Luke Petke for the question. That was a really good one. I also, like, when I first started getting into wrestling, I didn't understand Money in the Bank because I got into it literally right after like that, so I didn't understand what the briefcase was. So when he cashed it in on Cena, I was like, why is he getting a shot? Like he's given, I thought it was Vince rigging it, so like, oh, he just said, oh, you have another match now, Edge is gonna fight you. Like, I thought that was what it was, but then I understood later on, oh, he cashed in Money in the Bank, and I was like, oh, okay. But like at the time I was like, why are you doing this, Edge? You suck.
Yeah. So like the funny story is like because me and my buddy, we were fans like when the Money in the Bank concept was, so we had no idea what it was, and he was watching or his buddy was telling him, because his buddy had like a scramble screen. We didn't know how the Money in the Bank match would win. We thought you take down the contract, you have to open the contract and sign your name on it. Like, that's what we thought it was, like what you had to do.
Interesting.
And then and his friend's like scramble feed said Christian won. And then I checked the results the next morning and Edge won. I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, your friend is full of it.
Oh my god.
And he's like, I'm sorry, but it's like, the Money in the Bank concept has evolved over time, and I think
I love it.
Nobody but Edge could probably make that work.
And it was interesting how they like started off with a black briefcase, and then like RVD was the first one to customize it. Then they just started putting like the logo on a black briefcase. It was so interesting how it goes into now, like where you have that nice green like briefcase with the logo, customize it with Senor Money in the Bank. I could have just imagined Jey Uso with the briefcase, like how blue that thing would be with Yeet,
just a giant Yeet on the side,
Yeet in the Bank or something like.
And apparently the Money in the Bank, it wasn't going to be like for a championship. Originally it was the Hollywood Dream ladder match, and Van Dam would have been the winner, and his dream would be to bring back ECW, and that's where we get ECW One Night Stand.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
But then Vince is like, that's stupid. And then Brian Gewirtz and Jericho were just volleying ideas back and forth, and Jericho said, what if the winner just gets a world title match the next night on Raw? But Vince is like, I like it, but let's take it a step further, and now we have that cash in for a year stipulation.
Anytime, anywhere, and I think it worked perfect. So whatever they were thinking behind the scenes, the rest is history, honestly. So the final question I have, and Richie, thank you again for being on here. It's been a freaking pleasure having you. I know it's late at night.
Thank you for having me.
We'll try to.
Don't worry about it, man.
It's been freaking awesome, and I look forward to more conversations with you like this. It'll be a freaking pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So the final question that I have before we can give you the floor for any final thoughts is a question we probably all got as a kid. We all probably still get it as adults. What do you have to say to those who like to say wrestling is fake?
What is it nowadays?
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
That's it. Interview's over. See you guys.
It's just like with that question, it's just somebody who's just looking to discredit it and move on from the conversation. They're not looking for a discussion. They're just want to end the conversation right there of wrestling's fake. That's it. That's why it sucks. But it's just like, we've seen many things. We've seen things from politics to other sports to theater to drama on like reality TV to anything. All of it has some semblance of fakeness to it. I think it's just easy to say wrestling's fake is just a way to discredit somebody's like for this certain entertainment, And I feel like when people are just going like, oh, it's like it's different with movies. It's different from that because they're just like, they're more experienced, And I'm just kind of like, it's a different art form, I'm not going to go back in time, go to Van Gogh, and as he's like drawing or painting his picture, I'm just like, oh, your brush stroke is a little bit off. I wouldn't have put it there. We always want to critique someone's vision of creativity. And I feel like with wrestling, it's an easy thing to just point out, boom, you're fake. That's why you're bad. And I think when people disregard like, oh, what about this? This is also fake. It's like, oh, well, that's different, but they can't explain why. So I feel like when people say wrestling's fake, they just kind of go like, I don't want to learn more about this because it doesn't align with my viewpoint of what entertainment is. I feel like that's a conversation that people need to have more of. It's like, okay, why don't you like this? Why do you like this? And just anything. It doesn't have to be wrestling.
Their heads are buried in the sand. That's what it is. But it could also, like, I guess because people are so used to things like boxing, UFC, that's like their easy cop out, and they don't want to learn more about it because they think, oh, because it's just a pre-written show that's scripted, that like all of a sudden now everything that has to do with WWE is relevant. But like, they try to get into the ring and try to fight these guys, or fight and try to choreograph it. Like, they're not gonna last like 10 seconds with them.
Well, I mean, a lot of things like with boxing and UFC is just like they've been accused of like, fixing stuff too. So I'm like, what's the difference here? And here it's just like, yeah, we know everybody's a performer. We know everything's a performance. I come from a theater background, so it's just like, I appreciate like not only that, like the aspect of it, of like the entertainment aspect, and people are like, oh, they're not actual actors. I'm like, yeah, like of course they're not. It's a different genre. It's kind of like Batman the animated series and One Piece. You know what I mean? Both animated styles, but different kinds of stories. So it's just like there's different forms of entertainment, and if you don't want to learn more about that entertainment, that's fine, but don't critique the people that legitimately do enjoy it, because then you're just poo-pooing in somebody's parade that doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, and they act like it's like this revelation that like, oh my god, are you telling me it's fake? I'm good. That's it. I can't watch it no more. Like, you got me good. I'm so sorry. Master. Like, no.
Yeah, I guarantee you with our videos, we get every once in a while we'll have like a wrestling is fake like comment, and I always put the mind blown emoji 3 times on there because it is the first time in life that I've been talked about, and I've been a fan for over 20 years. So like, at least like if I didn't find out in year 1, year 20, you're blowing my mind right now, so thank you so much.
Exactly. They think they're the smartest person in the room when they realize, hello, we all understand that, but like, go somewhere else with that. You're not changing someone's life in this chat. You may change your life somewhere else, but get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
So Richie, again, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight for the Laying It Down podcast. Once again, guys, if you want to check out Richie Mars, check out the description down below in the comments. You can find all of his social media stuff there, his Instagram, TikTok, and everything else. Go follow him. I highly recommend you check out his content. Really good stuff. For Richie, for you, give us any final words you may have relating to whether it be wrestling or content creation or whatever, and we'll close it out from here. It's been an honor having you.
Thank you so much for having me, JLD. I know we talked about having a collab for a while, and I'm so glad that you had me on your podcast and just talking about wrestling, and I feel like long form conversations about wrestling need to happen. That's why podcasts like this, podcasts like my own, just to throw my mind in there, it's always good to have this like discussion on wrestling, and just like, even if we agree or disagree, we can still like act like adults and not like type in the comments of just like you're a poopy head or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's so refreshing to just have like conversations like this, and I'm just very grateful and blessed that we're both on this trajectory of content creation. And again, it's not like with you, me, Chrissy, Tina, Pro Wrestling Wizard, Debbie, Michaela the Ring Queen, Hot Take Wrestling, Pat the Wise Man, BC, who's at Run the Ropes shop. Check out some stuff there. He has great merch. I have merch on there as well. But it's so cool to have people to have like a healthy community about, and just kind of like get on this adventure together and not try to like cut the legs off from anybody. We're all here to support each other, and it's not like a competition, you know what I mean? Where in other places it could be a competition for content creation, and you see that from time to time. Sometimes in the Wrestle Talk space, you'll see like people who are trying to like tear each other down, and that's not what we're kind of about. We're here to prop people up. It's a healthy community, at least our side of it. We're in the we always call it it's the good side of Wrestle Talk. It's just a positive being. We listen to everybody's opinions, and then we just kind of support each other, because I'm going to be doing something different. You're doing something different. You know, my content and your content, it's like, it'll be different. Sometimes we'll have that Venn diagram where we cross together, but then it's like we're still doing our own thing. And then when one of us win, we all win.
You couldn't have said it better. Guys, again, follow Richie Mars. It's been a freaking pleasure having you today. Oh, tonight. I'm not used to doing these podcasts now at night, because now I can actually record whenever. So it's but it's still nice to have you on, and a pleasure for everybody that's watching. Make sure you guys follow us. This will be on YouTube and Spotify. Follow us there. Check out the merch at justlayingdown.com if you want to help support the brand. Richie, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. I hope I see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.